So, today we're going to talk about climate and succession. The essential question I want you to be able to answer and think about after this presentation is: in what ways do climate and succession contribute to the stability of an ecosystem? Now, to answer this question, we have to know what those vocabulary words mean. We are going to learn what succession is in these next few slides, so that's coming up for you. But we also have to use our prior knowledge of everything we have learned in the past few weeks as well. So I want you to remember back to when we were talking about the ecology organizational levels so we can recognize what an ecosystem is. The ecosystem level includes all the living organisms in an area and all the abiotic or non living factors that they interact with. So we will also do a quick review of climate. So remember back when we were talking about climate a week or two ago and the difference between weather and climate. Weather is the day to day conditions that we experience. So, for example, one day in Lafayette, it may be rainy. One day, it may be really sunny and hot. Another day, it may be kind of chilly. Climate, on the other hand, is the long term patterns of weather. It's our average temperature and precipitation over time, and our climate is directly related to what biome we are in. Now, generally, when we are talking about climate, we are talking about climate in large areas. So, for example, the climate for the whole state of Indiana. But we also have something called microclimates. Microclimates are varying climates within a region. For example, the climate on the south side of a tree may be warmer and drier than the north side of a tree. This may be because of the direction the wind blows or the amount of sun that area gets, but for whatever reason, there is a difference. Another example of a microclimate is a cave. It may be really warm and hot outside, but if you step just a few feet into a cave, it's going to cool down dramatically. This doesn't change the overall climate for the whole area, but it is important to know that we are going to have smaller differences within climates. Now, we had three factors we talked about that affect our climate, and one of them is the greenhouse effect. Basically, we get all of our heat from the sun, a lot of it bounces off the earth, goes back up, and then gets trapped in our atmosphere by all of the gases that are there. So if we trap a lot of heat, our world will heat up. If we trap only a little heat, we will cool down. This greenhouse effect is what most scientists are referencing when they talk about climate change. The next factor that affects our climate is latitude. Latitude affects our climate because it can change the amount of solar energy and heat that we get. For example, tropical climate zones are normally going to be near the equator because they're getting a lot of direct sun. It's right overhead most of the time, similar to what high noon feels like for us. Then we have polar climate zones. It's further away, and the sun's rays are hitting it at an angle, and the sun is way less intense here, so that makes it very cold. Then we have our temperate climate zones. This is the space that is in between the equator and the poles. So we get very different seasons throughout the year, depending on how the Earth is tilted. It's not always hot and it's not always cold. The third and final factor that affects our climate is heat transport through ocean currents and wind. Because heat is not distributed evenly, we get those currents of warm air or water moving in one direction and cold air or water moving in another. So, if you are in an area that gets a lot of very cold wind, that's going to make your overall temperature lower. And the same thing if you're in an area that's near a cold or warm body of water.